The story goes as follows. The 10th angel was approaching the Geofront when Mary, piloting Evangelion Unit 2, appeared to fight it, and although struggles badly, she keeps pushing to prevent the angel advancement. Suddenly, Rei appears piloting her damaged Evangelion unit, carrying an N2 mine missile, the most powerful non-nuclear weapon ever created, and tries to destroy the angel by herself while saving Mary. She fails, and although Mary managed to survive the explosion, Rei's Evangelion unit was immobilized, with Rei still inside it. The 10th angel devours the unit, and the Rei we met in the first two movies was no more. Shinji, after witnessing his friend's demise, runs towards the Geofront, confronts his father, and goes inside Evangelion Unit 1 to fight the angel, and tries to save her. He struggles, and the 10th angel overpowers him. Only Evangelion Unit 1 true form was able to save Shinji and fight back, defeating then the very powerful enemy. But Shinji, who is now in control of the Berserk Evangelion unit, pushes forward. His goal is to save Rei, his friend. He finally did, but by doing so, he unwittingly started the event known as the Third Impact. Instrumentality had begun. Gendo Ikari and Seele's plan were about to be fulfilled. The world was about to end. But then something happened. The Spear of Cautious appears from the sky and stopped the apocalyptic event. Kaoru, aboard of the Mark VI, descended from the moon and was the one who threw the spear. Seele decided to stop Instrumentality even though they were the ones with the plan. So one question remains. Why Seele will stop a plan they designed and put in motion? In this video I will try to answer that question. One of the most mysterious factions in Rebuild of Evangelion's story is Seele. And although it seems that they are the same one as in the original TV story, we know that Rebuild is a whole different one, with different characters and a different continuity. Seele is not an exception, and although its members are only seen as monolith in a handful of occasions in the story, their actions play a key part in the events throughout it. I already made a video on Seele and their role on the TV story. Nevertheless, till this day I haven't made any videos on the end of Evangelion. And although that video explains Seele's motives and goals, I did not went over on how the events developed, as it was not the purpose of that video. But for the purposes of this video, I will go over it very briefly, as it's important to understand the differences between the end of Evangelion Third Impact and Rebuild's second movie, Near Third Impact, and why Seele pushed and forced on the main continuity and prevented on Rebuilds. In the end of Evangelion, Seele's plan was fulfilled mostly as intended, as Gendo failed in his own plan to reunite himself with Yui, carrying Adam's embryo in his hand and using Rei and Lilith. Nevertheless, the forbidden union between Adam and Lilith was fulfilled when Rei was absorbed by Lilith, carrying Adam inside her and thus starting Instrumentality. The whole situation in the second part of the movie seems very confusing, but the role of Evangelion Unit 1 Instrumentality is simple. Seele wanted all humankind to become one, destroying everyone's AT field, thus turning everyone into an endless sea of LCL, and using Lilith and the Black Moon to collect all of the souls. According to the extended lore, Seele wanted a vessel that could unite all of their souls, that is the committee, into a single entity, and thus becoming a god that would live forever. And although Seele considered humankind to be a failure, the Evangelion unit was an entity comparable to a deity that would allow them to restart humanity as they wanted, the next step of human evolution. Let's leave the events of the end of Evangelion there and move to the events on Rebuild's second movie. I promise, however, to make a set of videos regarding the end of Evangelion in the future, where I will revisit this more in depth. In Rebuild, Instrumentality is more than an event, according to Kaoru in the third movie. It is a rite that has been put in practice since immemorial times, adding that the purpose of it is to end the old life, represented by Lilith, and thus Lilians or humans, and start a new one from the Tree of Life. While Kaoru is explaining this to Shinji, the screen is focusing on the outskirts of Tokyo 3, and the bizarre outcome of the near third impact that Shinji started and Kaoru stopped with the Spear of Cautious. These strange creatures are known as the Failures of Infinity, and according to the lore, they are the result of a failed and impure unity of Lilith and Adam. The most common trait between these abominations is that they are missing their head, and on the outskirts of the city, they seem more incomplete than those closer to the geofront, where the near third impact took place. We do not know if these failures are dead or alive at this point. What we do know is that in the official lore, they are catalogized as Evangelion units, which has been the origin of massive speculations from the fandom over the years, and probably the source of the new Nerves Evangelion units. In the third act of Reveal Q, the third movie, we are revealed several things, as Instrumentality is put in motion in this part. Number 1, Kaoru states that Rei Q is not the Rei that we know, which means that Rei's soul is not in her. Because I already stated earlier that Shinji saved Rei's soul from the 10th Angel Core and it was left someplace on the Evangelion Unit 1. My personal guess for ridiculing my sound is that I believe that Rei's soul lives within Shinji's SDAT, or Walkman, as it takes an unusual spotlight throughout the film. It's the only thing that Wily was able to extract from Evangelion Unit 1 other than Shinji. Rei Q at the end of the film takes it, and it takes a full screenshot in one of the teasers for Reveal 3+1. But again, that is just a silly little theory that I came up with on the past few months. Rei Q missing soul is not the only difference from the previous Rei, but also Rei Q is not at the orders of Gendo Ikari. Not anymore. Actually, she is now under the thumb of Seele. Basically, after the third impact was avoided, Nerve became under Seele's direct control, including the Ayanami series. When Shinji and Kaoru reach the Terminal Dogma, we are revealed that Lilith have been already being united with Mark VI, who has 2 spears. Now, we are led to believe by Kaoru that one of the spears is Cautious, while the other is Longinus. We know from the original lore that the Spear of Longinus is basically a safeguard provided by the ancestral race for the destruction of a god. While we are not certain of the Spear of Cautious' purpose, it is used only once in the story, when Kaoru halted the third impact. When Kaoru realized that there was no Cautious, but only 2 Longinus, he knows that something is wrong. At this point, we know that Kaoru is Seele's child, who is used as a countermeasure of Gendo's plan. Therefore, he stops while Shinji, who does not know anything, moves forward with the extraction of the spears. While doing so, Lily explodes in a sea of LCL, thus starting Instrumentality in the revealed story. The subsequent events reveal a lot of the background of the story, like Kaoru revealing himself to be an angel, Mark VI being the container of another angel. There is another angel, the 11th, that never appears on the story so far as we jump from the 10th to the 12th and then the 13th. We also learned that Mark IX is the Adam's vessel according to Mario. In the TV and the end of Evangelion story, there is only one Adam, while on Reveal, there is 4. One of them being Evangelion Unit 1. When Shinji started the third impact in the second movie, he was doing it aboard of a single Adam, which means Instrumentality, as Seele was planning, could not move forward. Seele wants all of the Adam merged together in a single entity before starting Instrumentality, an entity known as the True Evangelion. That is the reason why they sent Kaoru aboard Mark VI, another Adam, to stop the event. Not only that, but now Seele had another problem. Lily's soul, which is Rei, now resides within Unit 1, as Shinji pulled her out of the 10th Angel. This was Gendo Ikari's plan, as it seems like he was accepting the event as it was progressing before Seele's intervention. In Reveal Q, Evangelion Unit 1 was salvaged by Wily and was adapted to take part into the ship known as the Wonder, as Dr. Akagi explained early on the film. which means that now Seele and Gendo Ikari needs the ship in order to have all of the items and fulfill their plans. That is why Seele took control over Mark 9 away from Ray Q to attack the Wonder. They knew that Ray Q was undergoing some kind of epiphany and had to take matters on their own hands and try to take control of the Wonder. Only Asuka was able to stop it, and by doing so, sacrificing her Evangelion unit. Therefore, Wily intervention in the event was perfect for Seele, as they took advantage of the situation to try to take control of the Wonder. They already have in their possession 3 of the items, which are Mark 6, Angel, Unit 13 and the Key of Nebuchadnezzar. Although we haven't seen the later one since the second movie, the last and only time we have seen it in all its glory was on Gendo's possession as it was delivered by Kaji, who smuggled it out from the Bethany base in the South Pole during Mary and the Third Angel battle. So what happened at the climax of Reveal Q when Shinji pulled both of the spears out? Well, he allowed Lilith to become LCL and thus transferred the Angel within Mark 6 through it into Unit 13. And although the Wonder managed to escape, Kaoru's death within Unit 13 were good news for their plans, as now his soul resides within the unit. It is not clear, however, if this was Gendo's plan, as we can only deduct that his own plan is to put his soul within Unit 13 as a way to become a god and be able to reunite with Yui. He may use the Key of Nebuchadnezzar to achieve this purpose, and thus uniting all of the items that he has in his possession with his own soul. Let's summarize all we learned so far, the simplest way possible. Instrumentality is a rite that forces artificial human evolution. The masterminds behind it is Seele. The goal is to annihilate all life forms from the planet to start a new one, coming from the new fruit of life. To achieve this, there are 2 plans, Seele's and Gendo's. Seele's plan is similar to the one of the TV series. Force the forbidden union between Adam and Lilith. To do so, they needed to resuscitate Lilith, who was petrified in the Terminal Dogma. In their plans, they tend to use Kaoru as the original Adam, and use Shinji as a safeguard to fulfill Instrumentality in case that Kaoru dies in the process. This happens during Reveal Q. Gendo's plan is also similar to his own plan in the TV show, using Adam to reunite with Yui. Now, we do not know the specifics of his plan, although it seems like he really does not care what happens to humanity as long as he is able to fulfill his goal. That is the reason why he was okay with a near third impact in the second movie, as he had one of the items, which was Unit 1, unifying with Lily, who is Rite. Of course, Seele was not okay with it because Unit 1 is not the true Evangelion, and the 10th Angel was not Lilith. Currently, Seele is out of the picture as Gendo convinced them to commit suicide, tricking them to believe the Instrumentality was going according to their plans, as he and Fuyutsuki were turning their monoliths off. Now Gendo is free to do things as he pleases on the next movie. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, I will reward you with a final little secret that has been around the fandom for many years now. I will tell you who Seele actually is. Ready? Aliens. Now let me explain. Seele from the Reveal continuity is not the same Seele from the TV show where we actually get to see their faces and even know the name of their leader, Keel Lawrence. In the Reveal continuity we never get to see their faces, we see their monoliths floating in space, and also Gendo confirms that they were lifeforms whose souls were gifted with the fruit of knowledge, and were able to modify their souls to live forever. So we can assume from his statement that Seele are either angels or the ancestral race itself. The argument behind Kaoru's explanation in Reveal Q also seemed to imply that Seele were forcing human evolution for thousands of years. Now, we know aliens do exist in the Evangelion universe, both in the original story and on Reveals, because both Adam and Lilith came from space. Therefore, they are both from an alien origin. Alright, perhaps saying that Seele itself are straight up aliens may be a little bit too much, and their origins may be simpler than that. as we can see on the back of the monoliths, two very important clues that may imply the unification of two secret societies. The first one that stands out is the Eye of God, which is the pyramid eye, a symbol that has been linked with the Illuminati. And we also see three checkered squares, which may suggest a Masonic reference. Therefore, they only might be just a group of wealthy and powerful individuals that found the secret of immortality. Guys, thank you all so much for watching. I am currently developing a set of videos regarding Reveal of Evangelion. I publish Evangelion and other anime content on my channel each week. Make sure to subscribe and like the video if you did, and of course, as always, I wish you all a wonderful day.